We're going to move on next to creating a cash payments schedule before we do the cash budget. Now that we have the cash receipts schedule, and I've got a lot of stuff here in the screen in front of you. Don't get overwhelmed. I'll walk you through it. So what we're going to look at here, we have payables that arise from many different reasons. We buy wood, we buy fiberglass, we pay for labor. We also have an interest payment that we'll deal with here in a little bit. But the idea is that we don't pay cash typically up front when we buy products from vendors. We typically negotiate payment terms, and that benefits our cash flow. And so when we're creating a cash budget, we've got to kind of stagger all of these payments according to the terms. So what I've pulled across here is several things. One, I'll just draw your attention down here, and this was right into the problem, and I just recognized that there's a typo here. I'm sorry if that caused you confusion. This should say per set of skis. And what this is intended to tell us is that each pair of skis takes 5 board feet of wood, takes 6 yards of fiberglass, and 5 direct labor hours. So each pair of skis. So I need to figure out, like, how much wood am I going to use per pair of skis that I'm going to produce. So a couple of issues we've got to deal with is we got to figure out how much material and how much labor are we going to use in these months and convert that to a cash payment. So, and here's the units sold, which came from, would come from a revenue budget, and that's good information, but we don't start producing in the month we're going to sell the product. There's a lead time that happens. It takes a while to make the product, and we want to build up inventory. So we have a sales forecast we look at, and we start producing product prior to the sales, and that's what they tell us right here. And this came right from the problem as well, and that is that the skis are produced a month prior to the projected sale. So that's very important here. So that means in May I'm going to produce the skis that I'm going to sell in June. So these 120 sets of skis I'm going to sell in June, I'm going to make them in May, and in June I'm going to be producing the July skis, and in July I'm going to be producing the 100 August skis, and in August I'm going to be producing the 60 September skis, and so on and so forth. Okay, so this actually should probably go down here, budgeted production. Now I need to calculate how much material goes into producing those. So I've got a formula here that's going to say, okay, I'm going to produce 120 pairs of skis, and I'm going to multiply that by each one takes 5 board feet of wood. I'll lock that in with an absolute cell reference, and that means I need 600 board feet of wood in that month to make 120 pairs of skis. So I can carry this formula across, and it's simply doing the same thing, taking the number of projected skis we're going to produce times the quantity per unit I need to consume of wood. And so, and I don't have October number because I don't know what I'm going to make in November, and it's irrelevant in this problem anyways. So fiberglass, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make 120 sets of skis, and I'm going to multiply that by the 6 yards of fiberglass. I need 720 yards of fiberglass to make the skis in May that will be sold in June. And I copied that formula across, and that simply says take the quantity we're projecting that we're going to produce times the quantity per unit of fiberglass or whatever direct material it is we're creating. And I do the same thing for the labor. I'm going to produce 120 in May times 5 direct labor hours per pair of skis, and copy that across. Great. So that kind of sets the foundation for us to determine what the cost is that we're going to have to spend in cash to buy the materials, to buy the wood and the fiberglass, and to pay our employees. Okay, so this gets somewhat confusing, but you've got to, again, pay attention to the days. And what they're telling us here is that we don't pay for that wood when we receive it. So we get the wood from our vendor, and we're allowed to wait 30 days. That's our payment term. We got to pay all of it 30 days later. So first, I've got the disbursements laid out here. I'm going to pay in May. I'm not going to put any figure here because what I'm paying in May are April's purchases. I don't know what April's purchases are, so I don't know what I'm going to pay there for the wood or the fiberglass, but watch what happens in June. I know that in June I'm going to pay for the wood, the 600 board feet at $300 a board foot. I'm going to pay it in June because it's 30 days later. And that same formula will work going forward. I'm paying in July June's wood purchases, which is 1,000 board feet times $30, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing for the fiberglass. I'm using 720 yards of fiberglass, and each yard is $5. And I'm going to carry that on forward. Let my OCD be dealt with here. I need to have formatting similar. Okay, so that's how much I'm going to spend in June for the wood and the fiberglass, which constitutes the May production, which again is a precursor to the sale that'll happen in June. So it's kind of confusing, but this is how you do it. And my manufacturing labor, my employees aren't going to wait a month to get paid. So actually in May I would go ahead and pay those employees, and they tell us that in the problem, right? They say somewhere in here, I don't have it actually listed here, but it's in the problem. You can go refer to it. I'm going to pay 600 labor hours times times the 25. That's per unit. So that's 15,000, and I'm going to do the same thing for each of the months going forward. And I didn't correctly format that formula because I have to conditionally lock in that cell. And so this is, let me deal with the formatting here, sorry. Okay, so those are my payments for June, material and labor, and July material and labor, August and September material and labor. My interest payments now, and I didn't copy this over from the problem, so you'll have to go back and look at the problem, but what the problem tells me is that it's a 1-year note and we borrowed that $30,000. I'll just do the calculations right down here. We borrowed that $30,000 in a cash crunch that we had, and the note was borrowed at an interest rate of 6%, and that was a 1-year note with interest payments due every month. So if I take that divided by, that's $1,800 a year, right? But I'm going to make interest payments every month, so I actually have $150 every single month that I've got to pay, and I would put that up here in my disbursements for payments for various items. Okay, so that's a good schedule then, and remember of when the payments are going to happen. Remember, we're focusing in on these 3 months here, and we'll use those as we go ahead and construct the cash budget.